This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, it's all right.
We had the microphone
Yeah,
on,
you scared me.
so I think we should.
Sometimes I wanna put a bell on his list.
Scared me too bad.
Mike, can you hear us okay? Mike, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ackerman?
Here.
Mr. Graham?
Here.
Mr. LaFever?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Remote.
All right,
Mrs. O'Rourke? Here.
and Mike, are you on business or family matter as to why you're not present?
No, I am on personal vacation.
Okay, so you can attend, but you're not being, you can talk, but you can't vote. So, we'll proceed, but when we come to a vote, you're not gonna be able to vote.
Do I call his name or do I not call his name then?
I don't think you can call his name, I think you just have to show that he's absent.
Absent, okay,
Absent from the meeting, he's attending as a private citizen
on vacation.
on vacation, more so than a board member.
All right, but
Um,
he could talk.
Right, and just so everybody knows, I tried to email Tony McCumbee, our representative, about the House bill that's pending that allows for us to have meetings remotely. Because I want them to know how it's affecting us and probably other smaller villages and towns. So I'm hoping that they'll move that forward. IML has a position paper that supports that. So I'm gonna be on top of that and trying to get that, whatever we can do from Winnebago County and the other surrounding counties to get this going, we're gonna try and get it going. Because we need to have the ability to meet remotely with our trustees. All right, we do have a quorum. Any conflict of interest with what we're talking about tonight? All right, if you find that you have a conflict, please let us know. Do we have any changes in the agenda tonight?
Jimmy, we were not able to get the itemized list from the road project, is that correct?
We got the other end of,
So we had the one we discussed, but we were waiting to hear back
but
about.
we've got this, it shows that it's 7,000. That's just the retainage then. Cause Kelly, I gave it to her and
Here's
So
our
why don't,
packet.
we can leave it on there.
And then we get to it.
Can't do it. One thing I will take off is under 13A and B, it's ordinances regarding 1515 South Meridian. Since zoning wasn't able to actually discuss the zoning recommendation, we're going to take that off for tonight and have zoning address it at the July zoning meeting and then bring it back at the August meeting. So just a note for Sally and for Kelly, if we could just make sure that it gets back on the agenda for next month. All right, any other changes to the agenda tonight? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
But we need a motion.
Well, we have approval of changes to agenda here.
So that's all we're gonna do.
Yeah, we're approving the changes to the agenda.
Okay.
I'll make a motion if you have to.
No. That's all. I don't know. I asked a question.
Okay. If we have, so we have a motion from Julie, we have a second from Adam. Any discussion regarding the changes to the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks.
Your guys'
That,
that.
way, no,
Your name.
belt suspenders. Always want to make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't wanna be Adam. I don't wanna be Adam, and he doesn't wanna be me.
I just
At least we agree on something.
Hey now. Hey now.
All right. We have the consent agenda, a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All right. We need a roll call, please, when you're ready.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. LaFever,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
All right, that's approved. And we have the committee minutes and other reports in the file. We'll go on to public comment, and we have, I believe Stephanie is remote. And Stephanie, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, there you go. And just, we'll have you take the floor in just a second. You're going to be talking about the Winnebago Chamber event about trunk or treat. And why don't you go ahead and let us know what's going on.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing me some space here. I just wanted to reach out to the board and kind of give an update on our annual trunk or treat event. We are planning on having it on the 21st of October. I have been in touch with Sergeant Half in terms of what it may look like this year. I'm happy to provide updates as they become available with the board if needed. But I just wanted to reach out and make everyone aware that we plan on holding it again this year. And if there's anything special that we need to do so, please let me know.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know. If we do end up having a special event packet that, we have in place, then maybe next year you would fill that out, but we want to make sure that we have an appropriate form first. So, but thank you for coming forward and letting us.
I'm happy to keep communication open if there's any further questions.
Okay, yeah, no, we appreciate that. And your contact with Sergeant Hatt will be great because he can relay any concerns to the board as needed or to any other department, whether it's Public Works or anybody else. So, thank you for doing that, and we appreciate it. Anybody have anything for Stephanie? Anything else, Stephanie?
That is all.
All right, well, thanks.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. All right, we will go on to the committee reports, and we have Public Works.
Good afternoon. So we only have one item, and that is the approval of the payment for the road project that has been completed. We are holding back the retainage just in case. So that total amount is $160,554.86. And I have written an account number from Streets. Sally, correct me if I'm wrong immediately here, but I have 0142520.
It's a combination of that plus MFT.
Okay,
01, I didn't,
42520.
yes, 520.
And the other one is 1546850.
Okay.
I try to be proactive and still messed it up. So the one that's actually in the packet is slightly wrong. We did get a revised copy here. The number I just gave you was correct. There was just some adding issues on there. The only additional thing that I would say is we want to make this not coming from committee because it wasn't updated yet. We want to make this the approval subject to getting an itemized list of the changes. So we agreed on a set amount, and then there were some changes. We didn't need 15 manhole.
Yeah, I don't know that that's even on here, but that is the last change order right there.
Do you need to know the specific amounts for each fund?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that, because I'm looking at the budget.
Let me give you the specific amounts for each fund, at least as they're written on the
Okay.
document I received from Sally Bennett. Account 15-46-850, that's $20,872.13.
13, okay.
And then 0142520, that's $139,682.73. And it looks like the net total is the $160,554.86.
Yes. We have a motion.
So there was a lot of work that was not done because we didn't need it done anymore. And there was additions and deductions. Again, the total is correct. We just wanted to know specifically what the additions were and what the deductions were.
So ultimately, this will be the approved payment in that 165.54.86.
160.
165.54.86.
Correct.
Okay. Is that coming from the committee? Will the committee approve that or no?
No.
Okay. So
we need a second on the whole thing.
perfect. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any additional discussion regarding payment to Rock Road at this amount?
And just so everyone's clear, at least what Jeremy and I were talking about, is that that payment would be subject to first receiving the itemization
Right.
to know what the changes are, because they've got the additions and the deductions, but we don't know, we don't have an itemization.
So I'll sign the check, and then we will hold the check until we get the itemization. So,
And Public Works went out and said everything looks good, there's a couple small issues, but that's why we have the
That's why we're holding
retainage,
back the 17.
Correct.
Almost $18,000.
just to finalize. But as a whole, it went.
Wouldn't we normally get an itemization as they make changes or no?
I don't know. I don't think so.
You're supposed to.
Because
I mean, I've seen on other ones
Yes, we usually.
that we've
I
got,
would think.
as you go along, it tells you so you know where you are. But this just had, in essence, to me, this is the summary sheet.
Right.
And we just need the documentation to support it.
Right.
Especially because the first one that they gave that's in your packet made it look like at the end that there's still like $50,000 or something that we need to pay them.
Oh.
That had been changed and it wasn't reflected there. So that's why.
okay. All right, any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Graham?
yes.
Mr. Fever?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
And that is it for Public Works.
All right, and Sally, the check is in a folder that I'll give to you after the meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, thank you, Jeremy. We'll go on to, nothing from community development? No. All right, and then we've got police committee.
Chief, that's you, it looks like.
I didn't think we had anything for.
I didn't think we did either, and something showed up under the
Solicitor's
agenda.
permit.
A solicitor's permit?
Oh, we had one solicitor permit that came through. I did all the background check on the one salesperson and everything checked out, so other than that, it'd be up to the board whether they want to approve the permit or not.
Okay, and, you know, since you've approved it, you've done the work to do that, I don't think that, that should be an issue, so we'll just make a motion.
I guess my question is, why is the board gotta approve it?
What?
Do we have to approve it?
I don't know, I mean, is it something that we,
it says.
okay, then we have to.
Yeah, I didn't know what the board or not. I know I had to do the background information
That's
on
part
it.
of
and I
the
had to
procedures
approve
or
what was supposed to the board from my understanding.
So this is something where if we don't feel the board needs to approve these things, that ordinance could be addressed.
Right, I think the reason it was done that way was because there was concern that the board wanted to make sure they knew what was going on and that somebody didn't come up to them and say, hey, so-and-so's doing whatever,
I
and
guess
they had no clue.
a statement, email from the chief saying, hey, we're in the village, somebody says, we've issued a solicitor permit.
I kind of agree, Adam, I think, you know, thinking through it might make sense to leave the board out, we might want to change that
We
ordinance.
gotta approve it, it's my.
Yeah, I mean, I just know that they've been approved for the month of July, I don't know what, you know, the timeframe would be.
This is, I think this is the first one I've gotten since I've been made the chief, so,
This first one since 2020.
yeah, so it's been a while.
We used to have roofers.
Yeah, well, the roofers are, yeah, that was, but anyway, yeah, if you want me to in the future, just send emails to all board members that we have a certain person that's applied, I've approved the application, and this is what they're gonna be selling or whatever, just so everybody has an idea.
The only thing is if our ordinance currently says that it must be board approved, we have to do that until we change it.
Yeah.
I would like for you to send that email as to what it is. And then when it's on here, we don't have to ask any questions, we know what it is. But then I think that's something we can work on is changing that ordinance. And I think there may be some other things we want to look at.
Yeah, I want to bring that to community development. So.
Yep, so good. Community development can take a look at that and see what revisions need to be taken. But until then, yes, we will need to bring it before the board. Just may not have to have a lot of, you know, time at the board, so.
And I will say, there was somebody going door to door, a realtor. I don't know if we got any calls on that. I only know for my ring doorbell, I wasn't home. The doorbell rang and she hung the, are you selling, call me sign.
Anything good?
Huh?
Are you selling anything good?
No, she wanted to
No,
sell the
he
house.
wants to do.
Oh.
I don't know if I went to sell my house.
Oh,
So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is if you know of anyone that's doing that, we need to contact the police department so they can go out there and check on these people.
I don't know if that, Mary, would that even fit into the ordinance, if they're actually not selling anything?
Oh, she's selling her
Well,
services.
services, you know.
And that's another, yeah, that's, again, something that can be looked at the ordinance, who are we trying to, what's the purpose and all that is. All right, so we do have a motion, right?
Who did it?
I don't think,
We need a
I'll make a
motion.
motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Any discussion regarding this?
I love how we always have our discussion before we.
I mean, it happens, we talk about it, and then it's like, okay, so we want to make a motion, but you never know, there might be discussion after the fact.
And do we have are we going to put in the minutes the name of who the permit's for?
It's,
It's on the.
It's on the,
so Tarpley.
no, but I mean, and so it's in the minutes, that's what I'm saying, I know we have it, but.
Yeah. I was going to.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, just think so we can identify who it was.
So Tarpley, Tarpley, Herliny for door-to-door solicitation of education materials. All right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Anything else from police?
Nope.
Admin team, there's a recommendation by admin team to approve the resolution criteria. We talked about this and thought it would be good to bring to the board just to have an idea of a checklist, things that might go into the resolution. And wanted the board to take a look and then, say, yes, you like it, no, you don't like it, bring it back, make some changes to it, that kind of thing. So I guess just looking to see if the board wants to approve this type of format for a resolution. We don't need a formal vote, we just need,
I guess if the office staff that's been handling a lot of this stuff approves it, I think it's a no-brainer. They're the ones that wrote the criteria for it, why are we questioning it?
I'm just trying to think if there's anything else we would bring a resolution for, right? And the whole idea is to be able to find these decisions easier, quicker, right?
Right.
For the most part.
right. I mean, we talked about it, putting a box in there and checking which one of these does it apply to. So we could have an other box, if we felt that, it might be something other than this, but these are the typical things you'd have a resolution for. So, all right, if you feel there should be any changes, I guess Kelly will be the contact person, just so Kelly know, and they can modify it. But then we'll just use this as a template, so then Kelly, once you put it together, make sure that all department heads have it, and Mary has one.
So as long as it meets the criteria, then it would require a resolution. And that was the whole purpose of that. So if that was the.
And then do we as committees need to go, this needs to be written as based off the criteria, make sure this is written as a resolution?
Correct.
Yeah, I think if you could email this document alone out to everybody, I think it'd be helpful for us to have as a reference. 'Cause I can tell you how many committee meetings we're like, do we need a resolution?
And we can also put one of these in the booklet here, so the chairperson knows, I mean, because that's a handy reference thing. So
Okay.
we can
Kelly,
put it in there
that's
as
the
well.
Civics Plus
Yeah.
format.
So for example, the street project would have had a resolution,
You and I know.
Yeah. even though we've already approved the
Yeah.
amount prior to, we just approve the payment.
We typically would have a resolution for spending that.
That this might
a
be-
resolution from public
But you
works.
approve it at the beginning.
Yeah, I thought things part of a budget didn't really need this, but you're saying now we should? I mean, because that was kind of already budgeted for.
If it's,
You still do it, you hear them write the resolutions on watch city council's free for anything over X amount of dollars is a resolution. You're basically, yes, it's in the budget, but you're approving that money to spend it on.
you do the same thing with a police vehicle, every municipality pretty much has a resolution to purchase a police vehicle. Even though you put it in the budget and you're gonna do it, a public works truck, you have the resolution that says we are resolved that we're going to spend the money today. Even though you budgeted it, doesn't mean that you're gonna do it, just means that you may do it.
You still gotta approve the expenditure.
But you had a resolution to begin with to start the project.
Right, we had a resolution to start it, but we may have decided that it was a crappy job. We're not gonna pay the $160,000. So we wanna have a resolution that
We
says.
want a new resolution.
No, we want a resolution that says we are now approving of the payment. We approved the contract to have them start.
In the beginning.
We are now approving the payment for what they've done.
Okay.
And, because we've had that situation happen before where we were not happy with the result of the street work and we had issues. So yes, we need a resolution to approve the contract and then a resolution to approve the payment.
And this wouldn't indicate that you cannot have a resolution for anything else.
Right.
If you have something that you really want a resolution for, that's fine too.
And that's where I think if we have little boxes here, it kind of gives you an idea of which one of these does it fall under or is it another one? So that way people won't say, well, it's not one of those 7. Well, no, I checked the other box because it's this. This is why I wanted it. Perfect. All right.
So,
Yes, Ellen.
I have a comment, and I believe that form was put in the packet last month. The purchasing policy for the village. While we discussed the resolution criteria to be anything over 5,000, we also, at the admin team, discussed increasing all of the employees that have spending capability to have the minimum of 5,000 or the maximum of 5,000 so that it kind of fit together. So I think we were waiting to see if the board approved the criteria for the resolution in order to change that policy as well. And I meant to include that in the packet and I totally forgot.
That's right. No, thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, we did talk about trying to raise the minimum that could be spent in the department head, right? That's what we're looking at.
Yes.
So.
And it makes sense if because otherwise if the authority is only $3,000, then there's the gap between the 3 and the 5 that's required for the resolution.
Yeah. And so I think that's something that needs to come before the board. We can put it on the next agenda.
And if the board has no objection to the resolution criteria, then I'll prepare that for the next meeting.
Just taking the temperature of the board members, would you be in favor of having the chair, or not the chair, the supervisor or the director of a department having the ability to have it raised up to $5,000 as their limit? No spending limit. No problem with it. Okay. So, I mean, and ultimately it'll come before the board for a vote, so you can think about it and give your opinion at the next meeting. Yeah, Sally, why don't you go ahead and do that so we have that for the next meeting. Thanks for bringing that up. All right.
So I take it the idea would be then any purchase over 5,000, that's a resolution.
Right.
Even though it's budgeted.
Right, yep. But under 5,000, if it's budgeted, do it, kind of a thing.
Basically, if you can't buy it on your own, then we need a resolution.
I'll make sure it's clear.
And if it doesn't work, I mean, if something you find isn't working, then bring it up. If you're like, oh, we need a resolution, we don't need a resolution, bring it up, say it's not working in this situation or it should work in this situation. It's a flexible thing.
No, I have a lot of those are in that, my limit right now at 5,000.
But it's not 5,000 yet, right?
Right.
So we
Yeah,
go-
if you go to 5,000, it's gonna cover a lot of stuff I can cover without having to go to Julie or do a resolution.
Good. Okay, yep, that'll be a good thing. All right. We'll go to president items. C. I don't know if I forwarded it to all the board members, but I did resign as a zoning board member. I don't feel the village president should be on the zoning board. We currently have 4 members on the zoning board, and we would need to fill 3 positions. And I don't think that we need 7 zoning board members. It's a recommending body, and I think 5 would be plenty. We have 3 on liquor commission, and I think that's plenty for liquor commission. So I would ask that we have our village attorney prepare whatever ordinance or whatever zoning map ordinance, I think is what you said.
It's a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, so we have to have a public hearing
Okay.
before we can actually do it. But the zoning board did talk about that concept and how we were gonna mention it, and they're in favor of reducing the number. One, because it's so hard to get people for one, and sometimes, it's good to have a cross section, but Sometimes we have too many, it gets a little bit bogged down.
Do we need a motion to make that happen? Or are we just gonna start?
We know what we're gonna do, I think, is just have the public hearing set. And if everyone's in agreement, I would ask that we have the public hearing set at 5:55 on the evening of our next board meeting in August. And then that way Mary can get the publication out, and then we would have our public hearing at that time.
So give you enough time to get it out.
I just-
14.
I didn't have my calendar because I was at an appointment. I'm gonna look at a calendar and just go backwards because I have to get it done I would assume by this Friday. Right, but we are on the
It has to be
19th.
at least
So,
15
yeah, if I
days,
got it to
up
the,
to 30 days.
this is
prior to
on
the
Friday, right? So then it would publish on the next Thursday,
The 27th.
okay? And then
Oh, that's
we
right.
have 15 days.
We have a short time between now and
Yeah,
our next
right.
meeting.
That's why I
why.
asked, that's,
Business days or actual days?
Actual days, and
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, yeah, plenty.
Okay.
Well, yeah, obviously, there's 14 days in August, so you've got plenty. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. But no, as long as it fits
Perfect.
within the next.
Perfect, okay. So everyone's all right with setting it for that night. And then that night, after the public hearing at the regular meeting, then we'll have it, we can make sure we have it on the agenda to approve an ordinance. All right, next item I have is appointment of a zoning board member. If we go down to 5, we would have 1 position open. I did talk to 2 more people that were interested in the zoning board. One said he would do it if nobody else was willing to do it. Another one was kind of,
We got a few of those.
another one was kind of the same way. But he said he would like to maybe attend 1 or 2 before he actually, committed. And then the third one, talked to him and he definitely said, I'll do it. I said, do you need an explanation? He said, no, I know what government's like. So he'd be willing to do it. So, I also asked him about the regular village board position, and he said he might consider that. So it's possible that he could transition over to the board, and then we might be able to fill with one of the other 2 in the zoning. But this person's name is Brian Martin.
BRIAN.
BRIAN, And I don't know if you know him, but he is a sergeant on the Lowe's Park Police Department. And he's, he's been involved, like our police officers are involved in meetings and understand how they work. I'm sure he's done the same thing in Lowe's Park, so I think he understands how those meetings work. And he said he talked to his wife, he said, he'd be agreeable to doing it. I think he would be a good asset on the zoning board. And so unless any of you have any objections to him being on the zoning board, he would be appointed tonight and then he can go ahead and meet at the next zoning board meeting in July.
I just think it's a positive that it's somebody that doesn't have reservations, especially because our next big step is a revamp of the zoning ordinance, so it's really going to be.
Do they know that?
Yeah, no, I didn't mention that.
That gets you a call, Mary.
So, so if there's no objection, then we'll go ahead and have him. So Kelly, I think I gave you his information, his contact information. So yeah, just go ahead and reach out to him, please. All right, the next item we have is Director of Public Works hiring. And we did set up interviews. We had 1 person that interviewed, and Jeremy and I interviewed that person. When we came out of the interview, we felt that person was qualified for the position. And, I'd make a recommendation that we hire this person for the position. I don't know if you want to go into executive session, if you want to just have you present it now. It's up to you. If anybody feels we should go into executive session, we can.
I'd like to just because of what we want to discuss under 15, under new business.
Just understand that when you go into closed session, you are restricted to discussing that particular matter and nothing else. So If it's part of that, which it may be, we're fine.
Can we do executive session after new business?
We can,
How about we do that?
we can, I mean, that's what we've done in the past, so, yeah, and that way everyone doesn't have to stick around. So, so Adam, you're suggesting that we
Yeah,
defer,
I said just
defer that until.
defer item E to after new business for executive
Perfect.
session.
Okay, anybody have an objection to that?
No, and I think that's good because at least the vibe that I'm getting, I may be totally off base, but if you're talking a village administrator, you're probably talking salary, compensation,
Correct.
things like that. And I think whatever the terms are for the new hire would come into the play there, so.
Because I believe we could talk about
Because you can
the
talk.
village administrator about salary and compensation because it's not a position we have right now.
Right, oh, absolutely.
So we could freely talk about that.
Yep, we're not talking about an individual, we're not talking about,
We can also go into the executive session,
And-
talk about both items. Couldn't you just make a motion to go in for 2 items?
you could, but we're not talking about a contract for someone to hire. I don't think we
Yeah,
can go
you
into.
We're just talking about the idea
Right.
of
Well,
expanding our village operations to include a village administrator.
Right, but I think
So,
what trustee LaFever suggested is good because when we talk about the village administrator in open session, you could talk in generalities, and should you choose, about what's going to be involved with the position for public works director, so that people would have an idea, what money are we talking here?
Okay, so, so we will hold off until the last time of the meeting to do the director of public works hiring. And we'll go on to new business. Anyone have any new business?
I had 4 quick items.
Okay.
And they were more just updates, and maybe everyone else knows. The first one was the firework donations. Lots of people said great things about the parade and the fireworks. I did hear multiple people say, hey, I feel we missed the donation bins. I didn't see them out, I didn't see people walking, I didn't see them at the store to throw money in. So people were willing to donate, they just didn't know where to or how to, besides literally just walking here to the village. So that's something we want to look at next year.
Let me respond to that. I think you're right. If we had a way for donations online, because people sometimes want to use their debit cards or other things. But there were 3 people walking in the parade. Was it Shirley Crawford? And then
It was
Randy Cook was walking. I talked to both of them. And so they were in the parade. I just don't know if they were aggressive. I don't know.
I didn't see him, I can tell you that.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was the girls pick up candy or what.
Oh, yeah.
But like I said,
They were with the class of
That was
73.
They were right there.
yeah, so
When Mike and I did it, and Julie and Jim, and you, we were up in the front of the parade. Sometimes you lag back after a while, but we were in the front of the parade.
Well, I said, and people, everything about it was great. I heard there's people like, man, I really would have donated if I would have known how.
Yep.
So just want to let you guys know on that.
Perfect, thank you.
The second one, and this might have been discussed already, I don't remember the answer, the food truck permit. We talked about the wood fire pizza, and then the coffee one. Did that ever go anywhere? Is that still pending
I
somewhere?
think that's in community development,
I
right?
think that's,
That's what I want to talk about with that, in association with that ordinance. They are, the coffee truck, they got a permit, right? Again, because they've been permitted before. It's going both ways. The food truck guy, I talked to him, and his concern has to do with the way the ordinance reads. It covers the entire, it would cover the entire farmer's market.
Right, we didn't want to
So
do
we have
that.
this, we have so much money that we're asking for that permit that somebody selling a flower wouldn't want to pay.
Mhm.
His concern is that, and he also said that, this is only, I have not checked into this, that Rockford doesn't have a fee. The most he's seen is $50. So I just want to talk about our fee for that, and if we need one at all, if the way it's written covers the farmer's market, because I totally get the liability end of it. But I don't get the fee. I don't want to chase away a farmer's market because of it.
So it's a community
I
development.
have to bring it up in there. I just haven't yet.
Perfect.
We skipped that meeting. I'm going to bring it up.
I just remember I was just writing things down and thinking, I was like, I don't know what to have with this. So I appreciate it. UTVs with the police. I know it was discussed, yes, we want to keep moving forward with it. It's still the police still moving forward.
We had a few other things happening in the village and the legal side of it, you have other higher priorities, so it's at a standstill.
Well, it wasn't gonna happen before the fourth, so it kind of got tabled and drug out till the
Okay.
fall.
Correct. It's just more so in case people ask me, I was like, oh, yeah. And the last one is the,
Can I, before you move on
Sure.
to that, also, I think we were asking if anybody had any further thoughts or ideas. I know that it was, and I haven't received anything new or different.
I think it was brought up to a meeting, we talked about, hey, we want to continue moving forward with this. And the last one is codification. Are we still moving forward with that? No issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
We got a recent update on that.
That was in the packet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I had gotten contact, from their attorney, is that what you put in there? To show, oh, that's right, she copied you as well, to basically say, hey, we're here and we're working on it.
It's the resolutions just made me think about it, by putting all this stuff in places that we can see it, and I was like, I wonder where we are on that. So that's all the talking that I had, so I'm sorry and thank you all for at least updating me.
No, great.
All right, any other new business? Okay, let's go on to discussion of village administrator. And Mike, I know you're there, you're probably there, so feel free to jump in. You know, I'm looking around the table and I may not remember, so feel free to jump in. All right, so we've talked about over the years, even before I was village president, there was discussion of a village administrator. And I think there was information that Kelly assembled and put over here. I think maybe Adam and Sally Bennett and Jason contributed to some of this information here. So thank you all for putting together information to help with the discussion tonight. This was supposed to be our special board meeting tonight to talk just about the village administrator, but we had to incorporate into this meeting. So I'm not going to take a lot more time. I don't know if whoever wrote up some of these things wants to take a lead. Because I haven't had a chance to read through these, but, you know, we've got the one with the bullet points, it talks about supervisor role over departments. It looks like kind of a good list of things. I don't know if you want to start there.
I would say that's probably good, because the other ones appear to be like job descriptions.
Sure, yeah.
And, you know, more or less.
Okay, so let's just talk about this. And Jason, did you write this up?
Yes, and you know, I know them, they're in my head. I want to know what other people think of the ideas and any more they may have, or I'm looking for I'm trying to decide if there's a timeline we can have when we get this position.
Let me just put out my thought as to what you're looking at. We're not gonna have a 5-hour meeting tonight to talk about this and resolve it. So I don't think anyone has that expectation. I do think we have an expectation that if we're gonna do this, we need to do it sometime soon. If we're going to hire somebody, we need to have that and have that in place, because we have a lot of positions that may be dependent upon whether we do this or not. And what people decide to do may be dependent upon the hiring of a village administrator or not. So I think it is timely that we do that.
I think there also has to be discussion, and maybe there was informally, but is this a full-time position? Is it a part-time position? That sort of thing. I think, because that helps.
I guess
Shape the
my first
expectation.
question is right now, should we just do a straw poll and see where everybody is? Is there any poll is completely like, no, we're not doing this? Or we got a couple members that are like, meh. I mean, can we do a straw poll on this? I mean, that right there would really tell you.
Do we have anybody that is completely against having a village administrator?
That's, I think, is a great starting point.
Okay.
I mean, because now we're not trying to convince somebody
Right.
and now it's figuring out funds, description, responsibilities.
Right.
And that timeline you brought up. I think a great timeline would be next fiscal budget.
Starting January 1st.
So it's the first.
Mike,
Can I
Mike,
make
go
a
ahead.
comment, a couple questions?
Yeah,
Fundamentally, I'm in agreement with it. I guess from a legal perspective, depending on how the structure would be, we gotta, is there any ordinances or state requirements on how the role of the village president will change? And that's gotta be factored into it. Also how, whether the roles of the trustees would change, and how that's factored into it. But so I'm fundamentally in agreement with it, but I think there's a lot of pieces that need to be answered.
Sure, and that's why we're having the meeting tonight. It's all of these questions that we need to write down and have further information brought to a second meeting. Initially, I know of other places that have village presidents and have village administrators in Winnebago County. They seem to work hand in hand, so, I think that is a good point. We need to find out how that
Mike,
works.
Mike, from what I've read and gathered, is the village administrator runs your day-to-day operations. They reports to the village board and the president. So the board and the president oversees him instead of.
Or her.
Or her, sorry, correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Adam, I would agree with you, but I would expect that the role as we have as president today would also be altered fairly significantly from what it currently is if we had a village administrator.
Correct. The president would not have as many responsibilities, the day-to-day responsibilities, because the village administrator would be taking a lot of those over.
But does the president have that many responsibilities, or is Frank going above and beyond?
Correct.
The only responsibilities that a village president has is number one, to attend and do what the president does at the village board meeting. The second thing is to attend all the functions for the village, where you would normally see a mayor or a village president. Those are the two functions.
IML has a basic of how it works, kind of a cliff notes for this that I read, and that's right. There isn't a lot. You go way beyond, far beyond.
Would you be able to write down, and you might have already done this, write down the items that you do?
It's all right here.
It's all in your,
Job description.
it's in all your job descriptions.
I've done everything in village.
Minus a couple of things.
I mean, I've done ordinances, I've done resolutions,
I mean, it's the best.
I've managed departments, I've talked to every employee. I've done pretty much everything that a village, I mean, I'm attending meetings where the village administrator from South Beloit and the village administrator from McChesney Park and the village administrator from Roscoe are attending. I know them very well. I attend the PSAT meeting with those three. I attend the Region 1 planning with two of them. All of those things I'm doing. So that village administrator would take over all of those things that I'm currently doing. And I'm doing it because I feel that it's important that the village have representation. And yeah, I'm not required to do it, but I do it.
So there's no need to, basically everything that you would write, the reason I'm asking is you write it all down, essentially you highlight these 3 things are what I'm supposed to be doing and these 20 things I'm not. Now here's your job description, these are what the duties will be for your new village administrator, to include economic development, to include whatever, anything else.
Yeah.
But if we're saying that it's already covered in this, we don't need to do that.
Right, I think it's, I can look through these, when we get to the point where we're looking for a village administrator, I'll look through the duties and we can figure that out. I think we're looking at an overall picture of where do you see the village administrator, and I'm just looking at a broad stroke. And what I would say is exactly what Adam is saying. If you compare it to the school board, it's the superintendent of the school board, it's the school district. That's what the village administrator does. Hires the people below, recommends to the board who would be hired, make sure that the board policies are enacted and followed, and then is the person the board relies on to get things done and to report back to the board. If the board needs information, you go to the village administrator. The village administrator does it. The village administrator does the day-to-day things, and then if there's things that are coming up from different places, brings it to the board. Aside from what the committees are bringing to the board, the village administrator would do that.
Do you think there would be any benefit to having one of these other municipalities that has a comparable size that has a village administrator and a village president, maybe coming so that the board could have some interaction, just to see how do they effectively work together? Because the only thing, I mean, you could have it, and I'm not saying that would ever be that way here, but, you know, you don't want to have a situation where you have a village president that then feels that they're in essence stripped of everything because you've got a village administrator that's not consulting with them, they're just going and doing. And they're saying, I'm the village administrator, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I don't think that's the intent, and we just, how have they worked it out, or how do they do it? So it is a partnership.
I see where you're going with that.
I'll tell you, the Freeport mayor gets, when he was the mayor, he was a full-time, strong mayor. When Freeport decided to have a city administrator, he was all put out because they were taking away a lot of his authority and giving it to the city administrator. So then that balance shift in power, I don't think he then ran for the next term because he
No,
was.
so what they did, they went to the city manager position because they thought the city would be managed better by somebody who was educated and did it prior. Instead of having an elected position that comes in and runs something, I never ran a municipality before. So the citizens there thought the managerial process would be better. So the mayor went part-time as more of the ceremonial figure.
The titular head, basically.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
And run the board.
And runs a board. Now, I think they probably do a little bit more than what they're required to, but there's also, you know, you want to get reelected, you know, so you're trying to get your out there, so.
So what exactly, we all in agreement that we want to have a village administrator effective January 1st. I guess we haven't talked full-time or part-time, but besides that, what are we hoping to take away from this meeting with this? Because it seems like we're, yep, sounds great.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is kind of get in our heads these points. What do we want a village administrator to do? What do we want? What information do we want? I've thought about what Mary just said. Maybe having one or two of them come to a meeting. It's a lot to ask for them, but I think they would be a wealth of information because they can tell us exactly what they do in their communities, and we can ask them specific questions. You know, how do you deal with the board? You know, what do you do economic development? You know, what do you do? We can get some information from them. If they're not willing to come to a meeting, maybe they could write up a synopsis of what they do and send that to us. And again, you know, Scott Sanders, great guy, known him for years. He comes to Winnebago 4th of July parade every year. He loves it. You know, we've got Sandra from South Beloit. She's a great lady. She's been doing that for 4 or 5 years now.
Clayson would be the great, probably going to the fact he was their village president for 18 years and transitioned into their village administrator. Because he was doing what Frank did. Spending 4 or 5 hours a night after work doing what Frank did. And the board there pushed him, I don't know, pushed him, but he became their village administrator. Because they lost Dave Nord. They revamped 10, 15 years ago. Dave Nord left. He went to Dixon. They left it vacant for X amount of years. Hence why Clayson did all the work. And then they brought it back.
Yeah, I just think that would be so helpful, both for the staff. I know I would like to know certain things because the village administrator has to work with the village attorney. What are they doing? And they can't overstep certain bounds because of liability issues, you know, for the insurance. But yeah, we don't want to be doing the same thing. That's it.
And I'm sorry, her name is Sonia, not Sandra.
I guess another critical piece that needs to be addressed too is basically outlining, you know, how the budget would look like and how the funding of this thing would be going into perpetuity.
Let's talk about the funding. I think that's a big issue. And I wrote down some notes on that. And one of the things that I think we could, I left my notes in my office, but one of the things that we have is we were supposed to have $20,000 for the village president. Before I became village president, the previous one had been paid $20,000. And then the board voted to say, no, we're going to take, I believe this is how it worked, they were going to take $10,000 away to put towards the village president way back then.
That was his decision.
Right.
Yes.
So they took, so that was taken and put into a side thing for that, and they realized the village administrator would be a lot more than what they thought they could afford at the time. So that $10,000 went into a discretionary fund for the village president to be used for whatever the village president felt would be a good thing for the village. When I came on, so then my salary was $10,000, and then had the budget at $10,000. We used that for the Christmas dinner. We did that for the gifts to the employees, and we also did that for IML. And then there were some other things I think that we used it for, but it was pretty much that kind of stuff. Well, then over the years, that kind of dwindled and went away because we felt we had other uses for it, needs for it. We have our own line item now, I believe, for IML, where we put some funds in. But that $10,000 really should be there. I mean, that $10,000 was set aside initially for that, and we've lost track of it. But to me, there's $10,000 already set aside for the village administrator. I think that the village president fee should go from 10,000 down to 6,000. And I think that because I think the village president duties would be way less. We can debate that, we can decide if that's proper or not, but I think $6,000 would be a good base to start with. I think the trustees should be at $150 a month, but I also believe that the chairpersons should get another $75, so 50% for chairing a committee because they're spending that extra time with what they're doing, with whether it's minutes, whether it's talking to the staff, whether it's setting the agenda. So that would be $225, and that would likely be 4 trustees, but it could be one trustee gets $300. So I would word it to where it's 150 plus 75 for each time for each chairperson of a committee. So if you reduce the village president by 4,000 and you increase those, you're saving about $800 a year overall. Because I think it's 21,800 when you look at village president and trustees. I think it's 21,000 or close to it. I had my numbers, but I left in my office. But it's something low, even by giving the increase to them, there's still some savings overall. But where I think we have a lot of money, we have 2 places where we have money. One place is when you look at the income tax coming in and some of the other taxes, we're way above in our projections. Some are below our projections. Our projections are going to be lower than what we budgeted. But I think when you balance out what we're going to have versus what we budgeted, you're going to have an excess amount. And that in and of itself could be a large portion of the salary. The other thing is we will stop the Sullivan's payback at the end of 2024. That we owe about $61,000 right now. We will pay off probably another 25,000 or so by the end of this year. We will have about 46,000 to pay off in 2024. So once we are done with that, we've got $52,000 a year that we can put towards the village administrator. We also have discussed, and I think it's been openly discussed, that our deputy clerk would, at the time the village administrator is hired, that the deputy clerk would look to go down to a part-time position. So the benefits that we pay for health insurance would then switch from the deputy clerk over to the village administrator. So there would not be a change in any of that cost. It would be no additional cost with that transition.
Could I interrupt, Frank?
Yeah.
This afternoon, I looked through 5 years worth of audit reports, and I simply took our beginning fund balance for the general fund and our ending fund balance each year for the past 5 years. And over the course of that time, we've increased, we've gotten new revenue streams, and we've increased sequentially, and over that 5-year period, our fund balance in the general fund increased over $1 million. And I did the same thing for O&M, which is a little bit different, but that's at about $500,000 over that amount of time. And if we're talking about $100,000 a year, I also looked at one of our other $100,000 salaries to see what the taxes and insurance would be. And it's roughly about 120 per year at 100,000, just as a baseline. And,
Frank?
Yes, Mike?
I'll let Sally finish.
I was just gonna say, from my standpoint, I fully believe that we can afford to have that additional salary based on new streams of revenue and other increases. Also, the income tax is going up, I believe it's 4.75% in August, I heard, so.
And just one last point is, if we do have the deputy clerk's position go to a part-time, you would save a quarter of that salary as well. So that would be approximately, let's say, $12,000 or $12,500. So when you add that up, you're at close to $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 if we're looking at the 10,000. So we're getting close with just those monies, and we can do a part-time. We could do a part-time starting, and I would say I would want this person on in the employment by January 1st. The budget year start January 1st. I think
Whatever
that's
that first Monday is in January.
Okay. And we could
Well,
do,
it's just the first.
and Mary brought up, we could do part-time, we could do full-time. I mean, it's whatever the board wants. If you want to do a part-time and see how it works, fine. If you want to do a full-time and see how that goes, fine. But Mike, why don't you go ahead and.
Yeah, I would say that 90% in agreement with what you laid out. I would ask that, basically where the dollars are going to be coming from and what the potential salary of this person would be plotted over like a 5-year period of time with a, modest increase on there. So we see that. The one other area that I disagree with you on, and it's easy for me to say this because I'm on my way out, is the rate for the trustees needs to be increased. Now, it may be delayed at some point because of, regulations that it can't take effect until a future election. But my thoughts were right on line with yours, is whatever the trustee rate is, somebody's chairing a committee should get a premium over that. And then obviously the president has got duties that'll be on top of that, but you're relatively in line. But it's, I've been doing the trustee for 12 years. When you look at what most of us are putting into it, we're not even being remunerated minimum wage, whether it's increased to 200 or 250. But I think when we factor in the budgeting and the factors, I think it needs to be projected in there, a base increase. We're having difficulty getting people already. Whether an extra $100 a month makes a difference or not is yet to be determined, but I think that needs to be factored into the equation.
And Mike, that's, thank you for bringing that up. And, if we look at the village president, let's say it's 6,000, that's $500 a month. If we look at a trustee making $250, that's half as much, but the village president doesn't have to attend the committee meetings, but can, but the trustees are required to attend 2 committee meetings. So the village president could attend 1 meeting a month, and then whatever functions there are out, that the president needs to attend, but really the trustees could end up attending meetings more often than the village president. So we do need to kind of consider that, and I'm open to that. Whether it's 250 a person plus addition for chairman, or 200 a person plus addition for chairman, it doesn't really matter to me.
I have a question. You cannot change salary for a trustee until they're reelected.
Right.
What about I don't know what happens with this chair, adding the $75 for the chair.
Same thing. You can't, I don't think you can change it.
Because it's salary.
Right.
So it has to wait whatever.
2-year cycle, whatever the cycle is.
Right, so if.
It's a year and a half.
So if somebody's.
4 years.
Right, so somebody.
I want to say, Mike, I don't do this for the money. I don't think any of us took this position for the money.
And even though I got paid, and so she gets to write those.
So it is what it is. I guess to me, it's pocket change. But my feeling is on it a little bit is with the village administrator, some of the chair's responsibilities are gonna fall down a little bit more due to the fact some of that background work is gonna be accomplished on a day-to-day basis. That's also why you have a police chief, a department, public works director. They should be handling a lot of that stuff as their job And we're just here more or less representing the citizens and making sure their money is spent wisely, the policies are being followed. And if the police chief wants an ordinance to decrease speed limits, then it's up to us to make that happen. Or if the public works director goes, hey, we're not getting enough money out of our water bills, we need to increase it, that is up to us as a board to decide that stuff. So responsibility as board members would probably fall down a little bit less because your village administrators will be getting that done during the day-to-day.
Two quick things, Adam. One is, that's why I pushed for the administrative assistants, because I believe not only do we have the two up front that do what they're doing, but I think we have Rachel, we need one more. And that's going to help out each committee. I've always felt that each committee needs to have a part-time administrative assistant, and that's going to help the village administrator with the committees. The chairman of the committee shouldn't be taking notes. The chairman of the committee should not have to worry about the resolutions. The village administrator will be sitting in on the community development meetings. The village administrator will be helping out with the zoning board meetings. So you will have an employee that will be able to help out those two. I mean, we've already got chief and sergeant for police.
And I just have an issue though, you're gonna have more assistants than we do public works employees though right now. And that to me that's backwards as well. But I mean, you're correct. But if we get a village administrator, let that village administrator tell 6 months into it, we do.
Yep.
I need another assistant next year. Okay, and it's up to us to figure that out.
Yep.
But I mean, that's my thoughts on it, so.
And long term, I think that's how I see it, but you're right. I mean, if we don't need it, we don't ask for the assistant, but that's just what I'm thinking we could use to help. But to Mike's point, I mean, he's been doing this a long time, almost as long as I've been doing it, and, I've stepped in to help out. I remember doing some public works minutes for a while to help Mike out. Mike's been double chairing at times, committees, and Mike, I'll never forget this, and I apologize. Mike asked, is this a committee of doers? Is this one where you are on the committee where you have to do all the work? And at first it's like, well, no, we've got employees. But it ends up that you're doing a lot of the work. And that's where we need to make sure that we have employees. And that's why I fought for the administrative assistants, because I want to take the burden off the trustees. You said it, Adam. When the trustee appears at the meeting, you should have everything in front of you. You should have everything sent to you. You shouldn't have to work on a lot of the stuff yourself. You should be able to make the decision at the meeting, not take minutes. And when you should be able to go home, you shouldn't have to worry about, hey, I've got to write all this stuff down. That should be employees.
I think that's the way we're running committees now, isn't it? I mean, we do it in finance, we do it in police.
And
you're just saying, should they be spending their time doing that?
Correct.
Versus an administrative assistant.
And I think too that if, especially coming in new within a village administrator position, I wouldn't discount the amount of time that a board member would spend, in the sense that you don't just, whoever it is, I'm not putting any names to anything, I just put positions. That you don't say, okay, we got this village administrator, so here, this person's going to solve the problems of the village, and we're just gonna let them go do whatever. And somebody's gotta be minding the store, because there are times that a village administrator doesn't do what they're supposed to be doing.
That's what the board.
And that's why you want a board, and so I think it goes to Trustee McKinnon's point that, I think you still need to have a reasonable compensation for the board members so that they can be those eyes and ears. So that we're not a Dixon.
And it's not, right. Well, but that's true. I mean, you want to have, yes, all of you have joined the board because you want to do better for the village. And the money is secondary. Compensation, everyone likes to be compensated appropriately at some point. And so I think we do need to recognize it. That's why
Mike, I don't think anybody would disagree with what Mike said.
No.
I think Adam's point, okay, we gotta wait till an election, that's fine.
Right.
Well, it's just the rules, that's state statutes.
Right, that's
so.
So we got 2 years, 3 years for that conversation, so I got 4.
But I think, no, we need to do it now.
But if we don't fix it now, the next election's gonna come up and we're gonna be the same
Agreed.
spot.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Right. So we need to address this in the next 2 or 3 months, Because there is a limit, I think it's is it at least 6 months prior to the election?
180 days.
180, yeah, at least 6 months. So we need to have this in place, by October 1st of 2024,
Yes.
because the election will be in April of 2025.
Except for if we appoint, then that person will be up for election in April.
That's what I'm saying. So it would take that first wave.
Wait, so the newbie would get the money first?
Right. So all of you have to resign,
Yeah.
and then you get reappointed, and then that way the next election would take.
No, I hear what Mike's saying, at least two of us aren't here for the money, like I said, I didn't know it was a paid position. So another $100 on that check is not gonna make or break anybody, in my opinion, whatever.
Well, again, the main point is it's not the people in this room, but we have 2 spots open.
Yeah.
How much does economics play a role of it? Maybe not, but we.
No, Mike, I don't think it's the economics. I think it's the generation that's coming up. They're not volunteering their time, or they're not pursuing this type of stuff like they used to back, 20 years ago.
Well, but
we see that in the public sector, starting to see that pretty hard right now. It's just, they're not.
But I think you do still need to compensate appropriately, and that's what we have to look at, is $50 a meeting and $150 a month appropriate? Or should it be, $75 a meeting, $225 a month, and maybe an extra stipend for the person that's gonna be a chair? And so I really feel we need to give a stipend to whoever's a chairperson. I think that is necessary. Whatever the base is, we can figure that out, but, Mike, I like what Mike has to say. I think it's very appropriate that we take a look at that.
I don't disagree with them. I just want to say, I didn't do this for money, so.
The other thing is, the clerk is not, out of this discussion either. We have to look at what the clerk does. What do we want the clerk to do? I mean, Sally, the clerk is not necessarily supposed to be payroll. It's something that was put on her by the board. And I'm not sure that the clerk should do the payroll. I'm not taking anything away from you, Sally, but I'm just thinking the next clerk that comes in, we may not want to have
We have
payroll.
to address it before that.
Oh, because we have already put it in there?
No, it would have to be addressed, because the average person that would come in and be elected to the clerk position would not have the background that I have.
Right.
And they're gonna be in trouble.
Right, so that's why I
Sorry.
think we would not have the clerk position do payroll. So we want to look at what we pay the clerk position in the same way we look at the village president position and decide, is what the clerk position being paid appropriate if we're not having that person doing payroll? And so that may be an issue where we look at that, we may be down, put that down a little bit, and that's where the extra money comes in for the trustees or the village administrator. But I think we have to look at all of that at one time and decide how are we gonna do that. The treasurer and the village clerk are 2 positions that can be appointed or can be elected. We appoint our treasurer, we elect our clerk. I think to change the clerk to being appointed, we have to have a referendum. I don't know about vice versa. If we want to have that elected, I'm not sure if we have to have a referendum or not, but I know the statute clearly talks about both of those situations. I don't want to have our treasurer elected. I think it's great that we hire the treasurer, because we can hire and fire the treasurer. Just like Adam said about city manager for Freeport.
Surprise.
Well, but, city manager of Freeport, you can hire and fire that person.
Just as your village administrator, the board would have the ultimate authority to, sorry, but you're not meeting the village needs, you're done.
Yeah.
And
I think that's
find
huge,
somebody else.
because you could have a village president that is very good or very bad, and you can't do anything about it. And that's why I think it's really important that we have employees be the ones with all of the important roles. The clerk, we don't need to worry about that. The clerk is elected to do the minutes and to keep the records. That's the clerk's responsibility. If the clerk is not doing his or her responsibility, that gets addressed through the statute. But otherwise, but I think we need to look at all of the positions and then have in our minds what we want to pay all the positions, and then have that done and have it take effect then at the next election. And for those that aren't being elected at that point, then at the next election after that, it would take effect for those people.
That's a whole different meeting discussion. We got off.
No, it is, but I think
You're showing how we can free up some money in
Yes.
cash to pay for this.
Sorry.
I know you're fine. I would kind of keep on asking a little bit. We all keep,
Yeah.
we could be here till midnight if we wanted to.
No, 8 o'clock for me.
Yeah, no, I think we need to get a date o'clock.
I think we beat up his list pretty, Jason's list here pretty hardcore. I mean, because we're all kind of agreed to it, so we really don't need to hit all these bullet points.
No.
Really, 2 points. The only one is he has in here, to help also pay for the funds, is we have some of our ARPA funds and COVID funds to supplement for the next couple of years. And then another one is the possible retirement in a couple of years of the streets and fleets position, foreman or supervisor. That would hopefully free up the next amount of dollars to a point.
This is, and I'm just gonna speak out, for those two things. ARPA funds, that would get us through the budget year 2024. Until, because we have to pay the Sullivan payback, but if we can use the funds through 2024 for the village administrator, then we've got $52,000 in 2025. So we don't need to worry about the ARPA funds running out. We will have that 52,000 starting 2025. And I think some of these other places we can draw from are annually recurring incomes. So the ARPA funds would get us through 2024, and that's probably all we have to get us through. So
Because I was gonna also ask is, can some of the money come from our water operating fund, our O&M fund?
if the village administrator is doing things over that, absolutely.
Okay, so there's a little chunk of, percentage.
And that's
I
good.
was gonna recommend 50-50.
Well, yeah, it depends but yeah, I mean, that's up for discussion to see how much oversight that'll be.
And then my last thought is the village administrator should be an X amount of dollars over the top of your other department heads.
I disagree with that.
They should not be equal. He's the ultimate responsible person over top of the police chief, the public works director. He's ultimately responsible for everything they do.
To me, I'd have to think about that. I've always felt that experience plays a factor in what you get paid, and also position plays a factor in what you get paid, what your responsibilities are. I don't always agree that the person on top has to get more than the person underneath. I've seen lieutenants in police departments get paid more than other people higher than them, not lieutenants. I'm sorry. You've probably seen other departments where the hourly employee gets paid more than the lieutenant.
You have sergeants in certain agencies that are making more than the police chief.
The chief, right.
I mean, but that's basically because they are able to accrue overtime.
Right.
Correct.
But to me, so that's why I don't always feel that the head person has to get paid more.
But I think what he's saying is if you look at a base salary.
Correct,
You
starting
look at a
salary.
base salary for the chief of police and a base salary for sergeant.
Yes.
Chief of police
Yes.
is gonna be higher. The only reason that the sergeant can make more is if he can
Yes.
get paid overtime.
Yeah, no,
Right.
right.
And that's where I'm going. As you know, right now, our department heads are making 100,000. Doesn't mean our village administrator 103,000. It's not, I'm not saying it's extravagant, $30,000 more. We're just, you gotta have a certain percentage above, because he is ultimately the village department head. He's responsible for all departments.
I would agree that the starting salary should probably be higher than the starting salary, but if somebody's been here for 20 years, and you get this brand new person who's 21, gets hired in, no experience, they shouldn't just magically be making more.
Right.
Because the supervisory, yes, they're doing different things. They're still in charge, doesn't matter if you make more than I do or not, right? Their position still has control over the other ones. I don't think pay has to be something.
And
I think we're getting in the weeds here.
Yeah,
I think we think it's
I
gonna
think
be
we
about
can-
100 grand.
yeah, I think we're about
roughly, right?
100,000. That's what we're focusing on. We'll go with that. You know, again, we're big picture. Once we figure out what the duties are, we can then narrow down what are we gonna offer somebody. But I think, you know, is everyone in agreement that it should be around $100,000? That's kind of what we're looking at.
Based on the things that were handed out here, which Mike, you probably didn't get. I don't know if anybody
No,
emailed
they
you.
came out in the email, so I did look at them.
It would appear, I mean, these villages, I just kind of looked up the populations. I wasn't familiar with a lot of them, and they're all about the same, well, similar size. Nebraska is larger, of course, but.
I think we could afford 100,000. I don't know if we want to look at starting at 85, and again, we can talk about that as we get
Yeah,
closer.
I just think it
You're not
depends on.
gonna, you're not gonna get a reputable person
Well,
in
and
here at $85,000 to do a village administrator.
And we can look at, I mean, we can obviously afford 100,000 just fine.
Yes, I'm just,
But we
because
just.
I can tell you right now in the public sector, you're gonna have the animosity of a village administrator going, my police chief, that I'm his supervisor, he's making $20,000 more than me. That's not gonna happen, guys. I can tell you right now, anybody who's gonna look at that job, they're not gonna take it because they're looking at that, oh, I can go elsewhere and get more money. I'm telling you because I've worked the public sector my entire life, and that happens.
I think we need to consider it all.
But you gotta be close. You're not gonna get anybody 85,000 when you got your neighboring towns, they're $20,000 more.
Well, and 15 to 20 years ago, when we looked at this, probably 15 at least, when we looked at this before, it was 85,000.
And it just, but also 15 years ago, salaries were not.
Okay,
That's what
so
I'm saying,
what
it was
do we do,
85,000.
because we need to move people.
Yeah.
Is there a website somewhere you can go to, look up and down?
Yeah. So I think.
That's what we have.
If we can, do you want me to contact other village administrators and see if they can come to a special meeting or to the board meeting?
I don't think it would hurt. I think we have a very good idea of what we want our village administrator to do already.
So if you don't feel you need that, then I won't reach out. If you feel you need that to help, I can do that. So
I personally, just talking for myself, I don't need somebody to come in to explain what they're doing, so we already know we need. Well, I already
and
know.
we know kind of what we want the person to do.
I don't do that either.
I mean,
Has anybody looked at job descriptions from other?
We have a bunch.
Oh, you have a bunch of.
you have a few here, and it's pretty much is, they're all in line with just different verbiage for each task. So,
I think we've talked about a lot of it. I mean,
Yeah.
you for sure could fill a part-time job real quick with some of the things we've talked about.
And we had an economic development, things like that can easily be.
And just so it's clear, my suggestion for them coming in was not to know what the village administrator does, that's on paper, but how they interact with each other. Because I'm not real clear on how they do that.
You're talking about how the village
The village
administrator
president.
interacts with the president.
President
with
and
the
the
board.
department heads, the board, just to get, is this a realistic expectation of what we think's going to be happening?
Nothing wrong with it. I think if you're going to one of their meetings, just to see how it all flows once, I would get more out of that. Went to Roscoe's meeting and I said, oh, that's that person talking, if I see how they're interacting here.
Taste it, touch and feel it.
Yeah.
But, again, I have no problem if somebody wants to come in and speak, I'm going to be respectful, of course.
Okay. Well, if you feel strongly about having somebody come to a meeting, let Kelly know, let me know, but let Kelly know because I don't always check emails. But yeah, we're gonna put this topic on the agenda for the August meeting, since that's coming soon, and then we'll see where we're at that point. Let's go.
Should admin look at the job description or should someone
Put it all together.
meld it
Yeah.
all together in a way?
Yeah, why don't, Adam, do you think?
yeah, they can meld them together.
Yeah.
I mean, you can,
Yeah, why don't,
yeah, you can put them all together, and I would rather see if we all review it individually, we scratch out what we don't like or whatnot. I mean,
yeah, if you and Kelly wanna work on that list.
because some of them are gonna repeat, and to me, you don't need to repeat, it just be different language. Pick one that you two like the best,
Yeah.
and go from there.
And then if you want to include me in this topic, I would like to, then I can weigh in on, what I think is important or not. I'd be glad to do that. So, yeah.
If there's nothing else, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session, discuss the
One
director.
second.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Mike.
Before you do that, can I have the code number for executive session? Meeting number, it wasn't on the agenda.
Okay,
It's in the book.
it's in this book.
Yeah. I'll email it.
Kelly's gonna
Kelly's
email
gonna
it to you.
email you. And executive session meeting is 260-736-141.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll see you in just a couple minutes. So, oh wait.
Just a minute, I gotta have the motion first.
First, I would like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss the hiring of the Public Works Director,
A second.
All right, any discussion?
7:22 right now.
All right, if there's no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Oh, roll call.
You always have to have
Oh, roll
this,
call to go in, yeah.
executive session.
He was testing you. Nicely done.
Is that why? It didn't work. Mr. LaFever,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Unable to
No,
vote.
sorry. Oh, sorry, I missed my place. Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
7:23.
And do we need to discuss,